see. I talk about this adapted period and this demand period. It's, we're constantly changing, right? Constantly sort of adapting. But what we're talking about so maybe it's like weirdly black and white the way I'm doing it, that there's these demands presented to us. We adapt to those demands, then we're in the adapted period. Then we get hit with new demands. We struggle to meet them, so we're in our demand period. We're in our demand period. Eventually, we adapt, and we're in an adapted period. In some ways, you could say we're never in an adapted period because the world is sort of constantly changing, and I don't mean like the world is in people, but literally the world. There are all these. That's not my field. And then there are changes to resource levels and things like that. And there are new ideas and there are new systems. But I guess really, I would like us to reset with a little adaptive period where almost everything in the world is what we were adapted for, and anything that isn't something that we have really maladaptive reactions to, like the things in this world. But then the idea would be that, yeah, as the world and as people's systems change, there's always a little bit of demand that requires a little bit of a move to adapt. And it's not necessarily a should be thing. It's not, but that does happen, and it has had good results. It's the reason we exist. I guess, but just so long as people are so miserable and dying and all that stuff, and just making their lives about like nothing, it would be nice for us to take a break with an adapted period. And also we shouldn't enter, we don't have the brains for such a demanding period. And by demanding period, I don't mean just a thing that demands of us, right? Because, we could be adapted to those demands and, so we're able to fulfill those demands. What I'm talking about is a quickly changing, so where the demands are quickly changing or evolving themselves in such a way that it outpaces or is different from what we are adapted to. So a demand period is not just a period where there are demands. A demand period is a period where the demands do not match the current mechanisms. And the bigger the gap between those, well, one, the more fucked we are. And two, the more of a demand period you might call it, if we were to use the term that I just came up with today. Okay. So, yeah. So I want to change. I was wrong to talk about this as in like, there's this cyclical adaptive and demand period. But actually, no, maybe, because maybe that does sort of work. We could, in fact, because of what the things we've learned about the world and our records about the past, even though the world changes, it doesn't change all that much, does it? I mean, especially if we're not putting carbon dioxide into the air or whatever. No, that's not right. Carbon monoxide? Carbon? Whatever. So the world doesn't change that much. And if we have records of what's been happening over the last thousands of years, then we can anticipate a lot of stuff that we would encounter and be adapted to it and be prepared for it before it happens. I've never met anyone who's been a part of a volcano destroying a city or anything. But I think, system, well, I don't know. Okay, whatever. Maybe that was a bad example. So the point is, and I need to just lie down. The point is that we are in an extreme demand period. And it's like a question of like acceleration or like derivatives or some word like that where it's the measure of the change or the measure, the meta measure. Um anyway, all right. But I think we're in such an extreme demand period right now, meaning that there's such a huge difference and an importantly changing difference between the demands and our adaptations. And it seems like we're not going to make it through this one. And we can't keep going like this for a few 100,000 years. No, but it could be kind of cyclical was my point when did the volcano thing. It could be that we quite intentionally maintain our environment and our systems such that they match whatever our capacities are. And then save some really dramatic thing like a meteor. Save, some major event like that, or AI, or yeah, those two. Or save something like that. The sun fucking exploding. Okay. Um, then we would be able to just pretty consistently be in an environment for which we were adapted. And add to that the knowledge in those records and stuff. Now, not only do you have a lot of the adaptive mechanisms just naturally instinctively in the lifetime, but also you can correct any maladaptive things to that. So you just find the thing where you have the fewest maladaptive reactions, find that kind of setting, live in that, and then have the knowledge and stuff to correct for it and the value in the knowledge. Okay. Sorry, I have to just start a game on my phone, and I really want to be done with this. Wouldn't that be the best adaptation? If a species were to be able to control its environment, control its conditions and the demands, and have them consistent and set such that it doesn't need to adapt anymore, isn't that the ultimate adaptation? So, are we gonna like realize that maybe is that like a cool thing that you and I have figured out before that yeah it's like realized, are we in the pre something and then there was the time when, and it was after 1,000 years of constantly trying to be the best adapter, um, after a couple of thousand years of that almost destroyed us, and then slowly you know we use the technology and what we had learned to be able to maintain the environment, knowing that we're brains and brains can't like keep changing and learning that quickly. So would that be true intelligence, or at least the true adaptation is the last adaptation? Save a meteor, or even not. Even we can save ourselves from that. Okay. So there's the adapted period, the period in which we are adapted to our conditions. There's a demand period in which the demands and our adaptations are just super different, and so we're really struggling, and it's kind of make it or break it. But then there's the controlled adapted period, where we are in a time where we are adapted because we will control or maintain the environment. Great. I gotta get back.